Well, I'll try to make this brief and try to do this most weeks, just give you an idea what the homework is between Wednesday and the next class meeting. Normally that would be between Wednesday and Monday, but hey, we've got a holiday, so between Wednesday, yesterday, and next Wednesday. I'll move the homework to the home page. Sorry, had the wrong one there. You'll see homework and an inspirational student there, Mr. Dog. And then on the home page, I'll link to week one assignments. So you can go into a module, and I believe in redundancy. There are week one assignments right there. So I'll go back to the home page. And just to continue being redundant, you can link to the specific assignment if you want, the first one, or link to the second assignment if you like, the journal. And so I'll try to keep everything pretty systematic. You'll have a link to a folder with both assignments and a link to individual assignments. Along with that, I've got a link to the Google Books, so you can use that for the first readings, and a link to the recordings, which I can't recommend highly enough. It's just such a good way to really kind of get two readings in one when you read the book and listen to the recording. And again, in the interest of brevity, I think when you get to your the first assignment, the short essay and the scholarship prompts, one or the other, there are two. They're both 150 to 300 words, so, roughly a page or two. Two basic things. One is to stay focused. What I mean is don't write about too many things. Don't make it too busy, because the goal is to have one or two episodes that are really memorable. And then the other one, we don't have to worry about now, is concision. That is, don't be too wordy. Actually, for the first draft, I wouldn't worry about word count much at all. Just kind of write freely. Get your mind map going. Think of all the things that come to mind and in relation to the prompt. And that's just to kind of wake your head up before you start writing. And then try to write out about a couple of strong episodes that can either illustrate a challenge you've overcome and how that's really kind of made you the person you are. That's the first one. Or the second one about, what about college? What are your goals? What are your dreams? Kind of be focused on them. And either one's actually fine. So again, I want to make this brief. And then when we get to the journal, one of the things we talked about when we looked at the reading circle is somebody had asked about the things you do at home: annotating, chunking, paragraphing, or paraphrasing, like that. And so chunking is good. Obviously, I want you to keep track of the vocabulary. I mentioned that in the, wrong canvas. I mentioned that here. Read through part 1 and chapter 2 of part 2, basically up to page 24. Chunk the text, break it into sections, paraphrase the main idea for each section. That is, why is this important to the understanding the mystery of AIDS? And then take notes on vocabulary for in-class vocabulary on 122. And also either have a journal on your own with all of this chunking and vocabulary, or if you want, you can use the journal link, the assignment link here, and put it on Canvas. Either one is fine, okay? I'm just offering this as another link. It's also where I'll put your grades, so whether you keep a handwritten notebook or hand things in electronically, that's where I'll mark the grade. So just keep that in mind. I can scan the notebooks in class. That's pretty quick to do. And what do I mean by chunking? This is such an amazing book. And there's so much information. It's pretty stunning. Sometimes it's kind of intimidating. Let me give you an example of why. There are, just before the introduction, there are some 55 main characters. And so that's not a novel. It's not like they're all tangled up in the same plot, but they're certainly central to the same story, which is that of the AIDS virus. So it's really thick with names, very difficult to keep all of it straight, but it's pretty focused thematically. So I think we'll get that pretty well. We read the prologue. If you wanted the chunk, you'd talk about Rock Hudson. That's the first part. And then because of him, it's suddenly people paid attention. And then there's kind of a very critical thing saying they should have paid attention a lot earlier. How come? All right. Why do we have to take Rock Hudson to wake everybody up? And he talks about all the resources we had and didn't use. And then he has in that kind of a list of failure. People died, people died, people died. And from the top of the White House down to the streets of gay activism, the blame is spread all around. Kind of a colossal failure. That's the second or third chunk. And then finally there's the last chunk about the heroes who really stood up to it. So that's kind of what chunking is. Look at the sections. When we get into part one, we looked at the first part and we kind of understood New York Harbor, people coming in from all around the world to celebrate the bicentenary of America on July 4th, 1976. Well, at this time, that was thought, what a likely time for a virus to make its way to America, when everybody came to America for the party. And then suddenly we're back into 1976 in Zaire, Kinshasa, Girth Rask becoming ill. And she's one of the earliest cases, so she's certainly right there as just kind of one of the earlier bookmarks for this horrible disease. And then suddenly they drop into Ebola virus and the breakout there, and how just how gutsy the people were shutting it down. And that has something to do with AIDS, because when we want to, we can really go in, lay down the law, quarantine, and stop something. And that's what it's about. And then we're back to Girth Rask, her friend trying to have a Christmas Eve, her illnesses. And then suddenly we go ahead from Christmas of 76 to November of 77. And the poor thing's gone home to die. And her good friend wants to study what killed her. Pneumocystis carinii. And of course the friends scoff, nobody's going to want to study that. And this is all very central to AIDS. Pneumocystis carinii was really one of the first diseases that identified AIDS patients, because it is so rare. So she had the same thing that many of the people who die of AIDS died of. So it seems unrelated, but it really is very central. And then we get into part two, and thinking of chunking, it's kind of a mixture of the big party last Sunday in June, so it's a Gay Pride Day, San Francisco, hundreds of thousands of people. And there's kind of a long list of all the things gay people had achieved. And political power, a kind of a raucous party life, almost like an open-ended celebration, if you will, for people who finally were free. And so big party crowd. And it sounds like, the party will never end. And there's a lot of that, a lot of good, colorful descriptions of the parade, all the sort of zany, crazy groups and things like that. Lots of background about how San Francisco is becoming the gay capital. 5,000 homosexual men a year were moving to San Francisco. Really kind of creating quite a base there. And then, and this is really cool, it has Cleve Jones, one of the leaders in not only the gay community, but also one of the stronger voices in AIDS. He's on the top of the Ferris wheel. What a perfect place to be in 1980, because it is the top of the Ferris wheel. It'll come down to the ground soon, maybe with a crash. And you get a lot of his background there. And then suddenly, well, the crash to come, a new disease. Now we have a handful of gay doctors come out to meet at the parade, and what they're focusing on is the dramatic increase in STDs amongst gay males. And at first, maybe that wouldn't seem directly to have anything to do with AIDS, but you realize if these sort of garden variety STDs can spread like wildfire, what'll happen if something new and very lethal gets in? So it's kind of like this is the fertile ground for AIDS to take root. And a lot of emphasis on sex and sex clubs and all kinds of, some things are kind of wild. You might find them off-putting. Just read along. That's some nitty-gritty sexual stuff. I wouldn't get too excited about it. Just pass through it. And then finally, as we get near to the end of this, we have Gayton Dugas, very, very famous character. And and he's also one of the earlier people to contract AIDS and to fall sick with it. One of the more famous cases, I would say. There were thousands infected, but he became very infamous. So he's going to be a key player in the book. He's just had his cancer frozen off his face, so there are no blemishes, and now he can go party, 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 and, you know, maybe go to some all-night crazy raucous parties with lots of activity with and without clothes on. And it's kind of setting up a disaster here. This high-spirited young man who doesn't know a thing about what he has. Nobody else does either. Going off for a wild evening of revels. And then we bring it to a quiet close. So it's really quite a mix there. You can chunk it, look at it, and I don't want to go much further. My God, that's 15 minutes, 12 minutes. That's obscene. So I'll stop. But I just wanted to kind of walk you through to help orient you.